It was 9:45 p.m. on a Thursday night, and I was lying in bed, staring at my bank app in disbelief. Again. The numbers on the screen told a familiar story. My savings were dismal. $212.34. That was it. It wasn't that I was reckless with money, but every time I thought I was making progress, life seemed to throw curveballs. A broken car, surprise dental work, an emergency flight home for a family issue. I had been stuck in this cycle for what felt like years. But something was different this time. That night, as I lay there, I made a promise to myself. I was done with being broke. I had to break free from this financial trap. I wasn't earning six figures, and my bills weren't going anywhere. But I needed to do something drastic, something that would give me hope. I needed to save $1,000 in a month. Crazy, right? But the next morning, fueled by determination, I grabbed my laptop, opened a blank document, and typed one sentence. How to save $1,000 in 30 days. And that's where my journey began. The first week felt like a whirlwind of panic and excitement. But the fear of failure motivated me. I decided to start with the most painful, uncomfortable task, confronting my expenses. I printed out my last 2 months of bank statements and spent hours going through every single transaction. Coffee shops, takeout, subscription services, things I barely noticed before jumped out at me like neon signs. I knew I wasn't a huge spender, but seeing $6 here, $12 there, and $50 here all add up was terrifying. I realized the first step wasn't earning more, it was cutting back. I slashed my expenses with brutal honesty. Did I really need that $20 a month subscription to a streaming service I barely used? No. That $15 a week coffee habit? It had to go. Lunch out with coworkers? Not if I wanted to save $1,000. I canceled everything unnecessary. In one afternoon, I freed up close to $200 a month. That was the first small victory. But deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. I needed more drastic cuts. Next came meal prepping. This might sound boring, but I turned it into a game. I made a challenge for myself. How cheaply could I eat without compromising on health? Turns out, rice, beans, and frozen veggies go a long way. In one grocery trip, I slashed my food bill by 40%. Every money saved felt like a small win, one step closer to my goal. But here's the part one didn't expect: the panic. Cutting out luxuries made me feel like I was punishing myself. Every time I passed my favorite coffee shop on the way to work, I had to fight the urge to run in and grab my usual. It wasn't about the coffee anymore, it was about the comfort. The habit. And that was hard to break. By the start of week 2, I had a taste of victory. I'd cut out close to $300 in unnecessary spending, but I knew that still wasn't enough. I needed more income. But with my full-time job, I couldn't exactly pick up extra hours. That's when I turned to the internet. I started by selling things. I had clothes, electronics, and random gadgets gathering dust. That old iPhone I hadn't touched in 2 years? $100. A barely used camera? Another $150. I listed everything I didn't need on online marketplaces, and within days, my apartment felt lighter, and my bank balance was creeping up. But again, it wasn't enough. That's when I stumbled upon freelancing. I'd always loved writing but never thought I could actually make money doing it. After a bit of research, I found websites where people were hiring for short-term gigs. Writing blog posts, editing resumes, even transcribing audio files. I thought, why not? I created a profile, and within a few days, I landed my first client, a $50 job writing a product description. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Could this actually work? I dove in. Every spare moment I had, lunch breaks, weekends, late nights, I was hustling. Writing articles, editing documents, doing small gigs that paid $20 here and $30 there. It wasn't glamorous, but it added up. By the end of week 2, I had earned an extra $300. My confidence soared, but so did my exhaustion. Juggling a full-time job with freelancing wasn't easy. There were moments where I felt like I'd collapse from burnout. I questioned whether it was worth it. But every time I saw my savings account grow, it reignited the fire inside me. Week 3 started on a high. I was almost halfway to my goal, and for the first time, it felt achievable. But the world has a funny way of testing you when you're on a mission. That Friday, my friends invited me out for dinner and drinks. My instinct was to say yes. After all, I hadn't seen them in weeks, and I missed hanging out. But then I remembered my goal. Could I really justify spending $50 on a night out when I was so close to my target? I almost caved. The fear of missing out was real. But I didn't. Instead, I invited them over for a cheap, home-cooked meal. They laughed at my frugality but were surprisingly supportive. In fact, they even pitched in and brought snacks and drinks. That night, I realized something important: I didn't have to isolate myself to save money. I just needed to be creative and honest about my goals. But just when I thought I had conquered my temptations, life hit me with a setback. My car, my reliable old car, broke down. The repairs? $350. That was nearly a third of my savings gone in an instant. I was devastated. I cried. The frustration was overwhelming. I had worked so hard, and now it felt like the universe was against me. For a moment, I thought about giving up. What was the point of trying so hard when unexpected expenses could wipe out my progress in seconds? But then I remembered the promise I made to myself that first night. I wasn't going to quit. I took a deep breath and recalculated. If I pushed myself harder, worked more freelance gigs, and tightened my budget even further, I could still make it. It would be close, but it was possible. The last week was a blur of determination and exhaustion. I picked up every freelancing gig I could, some of them paying as little as $10, but every dollar mattered. I kept meal prepping, cut out any last luxuries, and even stopped driving unless absolutely necessary to save on gas. I felt like I was running a marathon and the finish line was in sight, but my legs were on fire. There were days I felt like I couldn't write another word or eat another bland meal, but the thought of failing after coming so far was unbearable. And then, something incredible happened. On the 28th day, I checked my savings account. $995.34. I couldn't believe it. I was so close, but that last stretch felt like the hardest. I was exhausted and had nothing left to sell or cut. Then I remembered cashback apps. Over the course of the month, I had been using them for groceries and gas, but hadn't checked my balance. I quickly logged in, and there it was, $30 in cashback rewards waiting to be claimed. I redeemed it immediately. When I refreshed my bank account, the numbers shifted. $1,025.34. I had done it. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the screen again, but this time, it wasn't disbelief. It was pride. I had saved $1,000 in 1 month. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't glamorous, but I had proved to myself that I could do it. The journey wasn't just about the money, though. It was about discipline, sacrifice, and creativity. I learned that I didn't need to deprive myself of joy, but I did need to be mindful. I learned that every money counts and that small changes can lead to big results. Most importantly, I learned that financial freedom isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. I saved $1,000 in 30 days, but what I gained was worth so much more than that. I gained control over my finances, my habits, and my life. And now, I know that if I could do it once, I could do it again. If you're feeling stuck like I was, wondering how you'll ever break free from the paycheck to paycheck cycle, here's my advice. 1. Audit your expenses. Print out your bank statements and go through every single expense. Cut out the unnecessary ones. Be brutal. It might hurt, but it's necessary. 2. Meal prep and cook at home. Food is a huge expense for most people. By meal prepping, I saved hundreds of dollars. Rice, beans, and veggies may not be exciting, but they're cheap and nutritious. 3. Start a side hustle. Find something you can do in your spare time to bring in extra cash. Whether it's freelancing, babysitting, or selling things online, every little bit helps. 4. Use cashback and reward programs. They may not seem like much, but over time, cashback apps can add up. I used mine for groceries and gas, and by the end of the month, they contributed to my goal. 5. Be honest with friends and family. You don't have to isolate yourself to save money. Be upfront about your goals, and you might be surprised at how supportive your loved ones are. 6. Don't give up. Unexpected expenses will come up. Life will throw challenges at you. But don't give up. Adjust, recalibrate, and keep going. The feeling of hitting your goal is worth it. Saving $1,000 in a month is possible. It's not easy, but with discipline, determination, and a little creativity, you can do it. Trust me, if I can do it, so can you.